Hey guys, how's it going? Happy 1 o'clock. Oh, it just turned to 1:01. Look at that. Well, happy 1:01 then. All right, so um, I was asked to kind of host this conversation around, what it is we're utilizing kind of company-wide for CMAs versus what some of you are using versus what you'd like to use, all those kinds of conversations. Um, I will say that at least so far, people who actually asked me to host this are not on the call. So that's that's that might be a small struggle, only in that we were going to have their thoughts and comments on it. However, we'll cruise forward. And so really what I hope to be able to accomplish from today is to just kind of hear again what it is most of you are using, um, how effective it is, where you'd like to see us go, and mastermind through what that looks like, such that the market centers can make a decision about shifting from what we currently have. What we currently have, um, that's available brokerage wide, is Toolkit CMA. I have spent the last probably decade arguing that we should move away from Toolkit CMA and choose something else, because in my opinion, and I don't mean for this to color our mastermind at all, but in my opinion, Toolkit CMA is like, the stegosaurus of CMAs. And what's interesting is that each time that it comes up, which is kind of annually or so, probably not in the last couple of years, but the pushback on getting rid of Toolkit CMA is always far greater than I understand. So that's kind of the background as to what brings us here. I'm happy to use whatever you guys want to use. We just need to kind of understand what it is you're looking for, how it's all going to work, knowing that a whole lot of you use your own tool, either your own tool or you don't use any real tool and you just kind of do a build your own. And so I'm kind of curious, what everyone's using, why you like it, why if you were to say, what, I think we should go to this from a brokerage perspective, why it's powerful. Is anybody seen something out there that kind of is a benchmark that we're looking to get to? So those are kind of all the questions that we're looking to answer today. So that is my intro. I'm looking around, and I think that still mostly the people that asked me to have this session today are still not on. So we'll do it without them. That's all good. Jody.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think we all need to say how antiquated Toolkit CMA is. I would love to see something more interactive. Just something where, in this day and age where you click, if you email something to someone, it's not necessarily on paper. If you email something to someone and you have comps, they should be able to click on those comps and see the photos. There should be something more interactive about it than just some flat PDF or printout.
So what you're saying is, so here's a question. Do you guys find that you are mostly producing these market analyses and emailing them off, or are you using them face to face? Like, do you need something tangible, printable? And if so, what does that look like? Or is it more important that it's interactive in a digital environment, or both?
So I'm just gonna. So I use sometimes I'll use the Toolkit CMA if I need to have a formal report. But whenever I go in and review comps, it's always going to be with the MLS listings. And so that you could click through and say, hey, let me show you what it looks like when it's completely decluttered, or let me show you a house that was perfectly staged, or you see how this house has X, Y, and Z, and you could click through the pictures. So I might have the flat paper with me at a listing appointment, but I'll always have those listings and my iPad with me. So I'll be able to go through that.
So you use the live MLS as one of the main focal points visually of your conversation.
To make it more interactive and to pull more information.
Got it. Jonathan.
So I came from Coldwell Banker only 10 months ago. They're using Moxie Presents, which I think is a great tool for everything that we're talking about. I mean, it's more interactive when you're sitting at the table with the clients. You can click, not have to have separate things opened up. It's just all in one spot. I have my listing presentation built into it, and then if they've got a question about a comp, I can just click on it, and then all of the data is right there. It's the same thing. Right now I'm using Cloud CMA, and the tools that they're using, I mean, I have it open right here. I could show you, but it breaks down the data very easily.
Yeah, pop it on the screen, Jonathan, just so we can see.
Sure. So, I mean, it's completely customizable. So this is what I have built into it right now. This is kind of like my rudimentary presentation. So I use it more basic because I can send this as a link, as a live site, and I can pull out of it what I don't want, leave into it what I want. Suggested lives, my averages, breaks down the data here. If I'm going back and I'm looking at my comps, it breaks everything down into statistical data. If someone in the listing presentation brings up a comp, I can just click on the map and then figure out where it's coming from that they're looking at, zoom in to see more listings. So I can just, and then it shows me everything in the neighborhood that's been selling. So it's like, oh, they were talking to me about this one. And then I can have the argument with all the data right in front of me. There's no gumming out, stumbling over, trying to find the address. Like you've got everything right in your hand. And then you can include the comp, and then it updates the full report and updates all the data that's there, So, and it gives you the price breakdown. And then when you come back down and you have your suggested price, all of that data is broken into what you've got here. What's from the sold to the active, the net sheet, what their proceeds are going to be. You can update this on the fly in the presentation if you wanted to. Moxie, I find to be a little bit more graphic and more techie, which that's me. But this I find to be simple.
What is this? Does this print in a certain way? I mean, if one
Yeah.
were to, yeah. So it's
so it's completely customizable. So as you're going through, you can select the listings. What I do is I go do the research in the MLS and I add the MLS numbers. But you can also use the program to generate the comps for you. But I find this lacking because I've been doing a lot of antique home lately when you need to apply a filter for the age of the house, and that doesn't exist here. So I usually pick the comps and then add it in. Then once I've selected the comps and go through, build out my net sheet, I customize the report. And then here's they give you pre-generated pages that you can put in, and I can build it out. I can also add create my own custom templates. And I have pages that I've imported and designed. So I can add that into my own presentation. And then this even has buyer tours. So I've been generating reports for, like, if I'm out in the field, you can create a slideshow report and send it and text it to your client. And then they can click through the houses as you're viewing them. What we're going to be seeing today, what the active homes are, look at the photos. They can click through, have the information about the house, put notes in here. You can view it as a PDF too.
So here's my question. Do you work for Cloud CMA on the side? Because that was pretty good.
Hey, I've been working with this for years. So it's a good system. I'd love to not have to pay for it.
Yeah, cool beans. Yeah, I'm gonna cut your screen. There we go. Thank you for that, because that's very helpful to be able to kind of see how it functions.
Uh-huh.
Noel.
Yeah, hi. I do basically the same thing as Jody. You know, I go on MLS Live, and then I also have a printout PDF version for my clients. I was also researching other CMAs, and I came across Cloud as well, and I thought it was pretty fabulous. Just the map view, like you were saying, when you're on and they bring up a property, when you're there, you're able just to go to the street and just see it. You know, I haven't done it, I haven't used it, but I was researching it, so I noticed all the features it had. So I think Cloud kind of stands out from the others as far as I can tell.
Noel, if you don't mind me asking, do you remember what other ones did you look at when you were doing your research that you thought Cloud standed out from?
Moxie, there was another one that started with an F, I forget. There was like 3 or 4 of them that I looked at. I wanted to say like free something it was. I have to look. I could text it to you or email it to you.
Yeah, that'd be
I like
awesome.
Moxie too. Moxie is really good.
Okay.
But the interactive part is kind of like necessity. That's really, in this day and age, that's kind of what I think
Yeah.
we all need.
Yeah.
Well, this is great for a Zoom if you're doing a Zoom presentation. Like, it's one thing if you're at an appointment and you have the paper, but I mean, what are you doing? What are you going to pull up a PDF and scroll through it when you're in a Zoom meeting? It's just not good, not as good of showmanship, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's well, and you know what? There is something to be said for. I can remember back in the old days when Debbie and I were listing property together. Still, we would bring one of our laptops to every appointment. We'd hardly ever open it, but just bringing the laptop gave you, like back in 1937, it gave you some tech cred, and it was enough that people thought you understood technology. And so, if the CMA version of what I just said has to come to the table so that you get some of those technology points, just kind of walking through the comps.
Right. I sort of feel like by not, like, it's so funny because you just made yourself a dinosaur. But the idea of not having an iPad or a computer with you is just like, this is 2022. You have to like, it used to be 20 years ago, if you had, or maybe 15 or even 10 years ago, that was something that was, hey, it was really cool if you had an iPad or a computer with you. I don't think you could walk into a listening presentation without it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was using that as an example of back 20 years ago, that made us cool. Those kinds of things don't make you cool anymore.
Right.
Now you need new things to make you cool. Unless you're just naturally cool, and so we'll have to have that conversation as well, because there are some things that you can do to be naturally cool. Well, that's a different CMA.
So someone else is teaching that class, right?
Yes. Well, one of the things that you typically need, you need to have spiky hair. So, Jonathan and I are going to spar offline just to create some fun, right? So, what else? Who else is using what? Anybody else have other thoughts about what stands out, what you've seen, all that good stuff? Donna, is Touche a new system? What else?
Can I share one
Yes,
that
ma'am.
some people may have already heard about? I've heard about it, started using it maybe 2 months ago, and I'm really liking it. And Debbie, you're familiar with the RPR, which is right within our MLS system.
Yeah.
And we're already paying for it as NAR members. And it's kind of describing, I don't know every nuance of it because, again, I'm newer to the party with it, but so far, everything that's been described, it does. It's offering. Yeah, you can print it. Yeah, you can send it. Yeah, you can use it live on the fly. Yeah, it's very techy. Yeah, you can take and delete different properties. It does run you through the whole thing. It's very screen shareable if you're on a Zoom. And the other thing that it also gives you comparisons from other resources. So it'll give you the CMA that the value that you've configured, and then it will also show you what bank of whatever is it, gives you like 4 or 5 others that you can decide to include or not. So then it isn't just one opinion. The productivity, ALC productivity committee is actually going to be hosting, sponsoring, giving access to another KW office that uses, there's a gentleman who teaches it regularly, and a few of us have sat in on it a couple of times, but Ronnie DiCarlo out of the Orlando office uses this at an extremely high level and is also an excellent teacher and communicator. So you'll be able to see it and make your own decision, but it's RPR and it's part of what we already pay for.
Yeah, Donna, do you guys know when that's going to be? Is that going to be in the next, couple of weeks?
I'm gonna talk to Ronnie. I was on with him yesterday, and between the happy birthday wishes for him, I didn't get to get it on the calendar. But yeah, he teaches it normally twice a month in his market center. So we'll just get access to either one or both.
Got it. Perfect. Debbie?
So I am kind of nowhere with this as far as a decision goes, except I'm looking to get more familiar with the RPR just because of its accessibility, and it does look like it has the power. My only contribution to this really right now is I had been using MLS data and just taking the specifics along the way. It doesn't cut it at this point. And I have a client who has said to me, what is with this MLS? It is so archaic. It's not an up-to-date system because it's not live. It's not, there's nothing that's fluid about it. It's very static. And so these young guys are looking for something that's more what Jonathan and Donna are talking about and I love that cloud CMA. That was fascinating. So, I mean, something on that order has to be the next step.
Yeah.
And by the way, my vote also with Toolkit is so last decade or last century. It's like, eh.
I was shocked we were using it when I found out. No.
Yeah, and yeah, so like I said, we've been trying to get rid of it right, Deb, every year we do the new budget, like, oh God, we have to get rid of this. And we start to go down the path of, and there's always,
it's not on brand.
Well, it's not on anything. I mean, it's like having a monk travel with you to the appointment who's, transcribing things as you speak. So I think the good news is, unless there's somebody on the call who wants to speak to Toolkit and the benefits and specialness and brilliance of Toolkit, going once, going twice, so I think the answer lies in, what is the replacement and how quickly can we get that replacement. I think the other thing to be cognizant of, right, because there were a bunch of us who at some point kind of pulled away from the formalness of presentations, right? And if you think about some of the things that Diana was teaching us in the early bolds, right, and the whole idea of pulling back from some formal fancy package, it's why a lot of us moved to, let's just use the MLS, let's just use the comps, right? Because we're going to streamline this sucker. We're not going to give people the graphs that everyone gives, all that filler crap, right? Because that's how we were looking at all that stuff, right? It's like when you have nothing else to say, make sure that all 47 pages in the CMA print, so that then at least you look smart, right? And see that, so a lot of us were viewing all that extra junk as extra junk. However, what has caught up to us over time and eclipsed us, in my humble opinion, is, for the most part, in most of our markets, the seller client is making, whether we think it's the right decision or not, or we think it's relevant or not, some sellers are making decisions based on the quality of how things look, the fanciness of how things look. And it's a simple reality. You can fight it all day long if you so choose, or you can just decide there are some benchmarks out there with quality of style and design. And so my thought would be also be, all right, how are we addressing that, right? Does our stuff look as fancy? Even if you wave the flag of who cares about how it looks? Well, the answer is some of your potential sellers do. So are we addressing that piece of it as well? And what have we seen that checks that box? Does Cloud CMA or Moxie look fancy, or can it look fancy with some customized stuff, if that's the path we go? And I don't know the answers, so maybe some of you do.
Yes, they can both look fancy. They can all look fancy.
Cool. And I guess my question is, like, fancy enough. And so I'm going to, hold on, I'm going to stop the recording real quick. So what other thoughts do you have?
Does the marketing platform do any do they have any kind of CMA, the new marketing platform?
They don't have a CMA per se. We kind of looked at what that integration might look like on the back end, and you're starting to, when you have kind of a bolt-on solution plus a bolt-on solution, which is what we're talking about right now. The two bolt-ons, even though they're both coming in and working with us, they're not integrated on the back end. So the answer to that is no, not at the time. We're working on potential integration for market statistic systems with the new marketing folks. They do have some integration with some of those companies, and so we're working on that. The ability to kind of send out a link to your clients every single month so that they can click on the town they want to see and have all the market stats at their fingertips, that kind of thing. But not a CMA integration yet, Joy.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Yeah.
I think one of the issues that we are also dealing with is really live online computer presentations give us the highest glitz and the highest functionality, really. And yet, I'm going to say, let me know if you guys disagree with this, but 80% of the people that we meet with want to have something in their hands. Do I see any nods? Do you agree with that or no? Am I off base?
It's a mix.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, sort of. But 80%, 70%, I feel like I've lost out by not handing them something solid in quite a few cases.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch the watch the yeses and the nos, right? So we can maybe agree that it's somewhere in the middle, right? Maybe 70% is too high and 25% is too low. So it's someplace in the middle. And I think it maybe depends on the who and the when, and the I think Jimena just said it kind of depends on who you're giving it to, right?
Well, and remember, my clientele tends to be older.
Mm.
Well, do you remember when you used to have clients and you used to have to print out the listing sheets of the houses you showed them? That never happens anymore. Remember when we used to have stacks of papers at the house? That doesn't really happen anymore. So I think certainly it is what Jimena says, that it's probably generational, but I think it's certainly heading in the direction of let me point and click.
Yes.
Well, all of these systems can generate both.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, Jennifer,
just
I'm
want-
so sorry because I meant to call on you. I didn't see your hand because it was like it's in your wall.
My
hand,
yellow
and I couldn't
background.
see it.
Yeah. I should make it black or something.
Yeah. So go ahead, and then Jimena, I'll come back to you.
So for Moxie, right? I'd say that like it's more of an interactive platform in terms of you can generate, like when I upload this to Cloud CMA, my custom presentations, the custom pages that I'm using, those are all PDF formats, right? So the only interactive page is the actual CMA portion of it, where Moxie is developer friendly and you can actually create more interactive like infographics, and it's more advanced. And you're like generating and creating custom websites essentially, and they're your listing presentation. They're even like fakes. Now I'm getting in the weeds, but like Facebook pixel code compatible. So you can send somebody there, cookie them and then retarget them on Facebook for them reviewing the CMA. So now you're utilizing marketing efforts from looking at this information, how often they viewed it. You get analytics from Google. Now you're taking the unfair advantage and really leveraging it. CMA doesn't have all of that, but it's a great presentation package. But I was also under the impression that Moxie is a broker product. I didn't think that you could pay for Moxie as a single agent.
Well, the good news is we're looking at broker products, so we can certainly look at that. My big question is, does Moxie install LoJack on their cars and bug their phones as well? Because it sounds like it does just about everything else.
Hey man, welcome to the game, you know?
Yeah, indeed.
I want all the data.
And,
Right.
and I'm going to say one more thing. I love, this is very exciting, and it has to be simple enough for those of us who are a little to be able to use.
Well, you don't have to do that
fluidly as well, right?
Yeah. Well, you can build a traditional CMA, and it's beautiful and interactive, and you don't have to go down the rabbit hole that I just went down. That's the point. Yeah. But you can embed YouTube videos, you know, you can do things like that too. And, you know, yeah.
That's cool. What else? What other thoughts, comments, ideas?
Sorry, I was just gonna say that sometimes you have to also keep in mind the person's personality, right? Since you're always talking about that chart, like, or whatever, the different disc profiles, I think is what it's called. Like I don't know. I don't consider myself young, but I guess people would consider me young. I need paper. I'm an older person. I need paper. I need things that I can touch. It reminds me of things. I've had clients my age many times, be like, oh, why isn't there a sheet in the house? Why isn't there this? I can't remember this. I can't remember that. So I think it also sometimes just depends on the personality.
Yeah. Hey, Yumena, could you do me a favor? Because you also might have at least, I don't know that you have necessarily an answer to this, but maybe start us down this conversation. As a Spanish speaker with Spanish speaking clientele sometimes, how important do you feel it is that we have some kind of translated documentation from a CMA perspective? Would that be something that if we had that kind of documentation in Spanish would be a help? Talk about that.
All of it. I mean, not to sound like Debbie Downer, but in terms of like just the listing contract stuff, I mean, that I needed like 6 years ago. Like, so because it's a painful process, you have to translate it to them. And if you don't translate it to them, then they'll be like, okay, my children will translate this to me over the weekend. I'll get back to you. So anything, I mean, I've done a lot of things myself that I've already just translated. So I have it on the go so I can give it to my clients, but more so like write the listing contract or like the smart MLS form and stuff like that, you know, things that I can't go around making my own, that would really be helpful.
Okay. Yeah. So just so you know, we began this process probably about 12 to 18 months ago of converting the basic forms, the listing contracts and the buyer side contracts into Spanish. And just so you're all aware, it is a far more complicated process from a business perspective. There are a lot of things that I got to learn about. You know, I thought, all right, well, I'm not gonna do it, right? And I'm not gonna sit with Yumena and do it because, you know, we're not attorneys, and so we really need that kind of legal. You know, for me to be able to be as a non-bilingual broker, right, to be able to talk with clients about documents in another language, that creates a whole lot of issues and exposure and liability. If we ever had to take somebody to court who we used a non-English version of our documents in, we then have other exposures and other liabilities, and that you have to then provide translators, both for your side and for the other side. And so there's like all this stuff I got to learn about what happens when you attempt to just have a different form in a different language. However, we think we found a solution to all of that, and we are working on the main documents right now. We hope to be able to have those for you. I'd love to give you a date, but in the next couple of months to be able to roll those out to you. knowing that the documentation or the presentation materials to get to those documents would also be helpful in Spanish. Maybe is another thing to look at. Is there a company that has both? I don't know.
Yeah, because I'll just say last point to this whole like Spanish speaking person. A lot of times, unfortunately, my experience has been that you get a client, whether it's a buyer or seller, and they've unfortunately been scammed in the past because they didn't really understand the paperwork, or they were like, oh, my friend told me to use this person, so I didn't really understand the paperwork. I just signed. So, and then if they've had obviously that type of negative experience, they're more freaked out about signing something again. So it's just overall, I mean, it's not a super straightforward process, and we try to make it, but it's almost like you're like, no, this is a legal like, in other words, if you had a real legal one from your brokerage that makes it look official, they don't think that you as a real estate are trying to swindle them or do, because there's a lack of trust there.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that insight, and look, we're going to make changes, and we're going to make things simpler and easier for all of you, and more powerful for your clients. Well, then let's talk through all of those things that maybe the whole idea of the mastermind is to come up with some of the best ideas that we can then move forward and implement. So I appreciate you giving me that insight. What else? Thoughts, ideas, companies that you've used, experiences that you've had, things you've seen from competitors that you kind of thought, wow, where did they get that? What does that look like? I mean, anything else that would help us today? All righty. So here's what I pulled away from our time together. I have a bunch of ideas and companies that you guys know and have used that we can start with, right? It's easy to go to Google and say Realtor CMA software, right? And then just kind of go through each and every one of them. But I wanted your input, since you're the ones who are using it and you're the ones who will be using it, to know what it is you're looking for and where you've been and what some of you are using now. Because I mean, if I look around this Zoom room, it's not like we don't have listing agents on the call, right? A lot of you are listing a lot. And so clearly what you're utilizing today is getting the job done. The question is, could we be using something that would get the job done more often and or make your experience with your clients simpler or more effective? And that's ultimately what we're looking to do. So you were here, which means you got to vote that we're gonna move away from Toolkit. Just in case anybody said, well, I never got my say on that. This was the say. You guys got to kind of put the nail in the coffin on Toolkit. We will get hot and heavy and busy on finding that replacement. The good news is that in another 10 days or so, many of us will be down in Orlando and have the opportunity to meet with a lot of these companies that you just mentioned, live and in person at the trade show, at Family Reunion, and have some demonstrations and conversations live and in person. So we'll do some work on the upfront of that, and then go down and meet people in person, see what we can secure, and get that change in motion. Anything else before we finish up? Right. Well, as always, I appreciate your time and your partnership. Thank you for your ideas and honesty. We'll circle back as soon as we have the next steps on this in place. And do check out the Bullseye Marketing Suite tomorrow at 1 o'clock right here in this Zoom room. Probably only 20 minutes or so to kind of get the big preview as we're building it out. And then a couple of weeks from now, we'll come back with training on that. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you soon. Okay.